Gertrude goes on to say, I'm learning that my lack of patience and my need for them to do more than bare minimum is causing all of us to run down the ladder. If I ask twice and have to ask a third time, I'm upset. The kids are not used to doing for themselves and are not used to asking for help. I have raised my daughter very differently, and although I know all kids are different, I feel they should be more advanced for their age. I'm talking basics like keeping their rooms clean, brushing their teeth, eating with utensils and not their hands. So some of this is, some of the issue here, not just here, but in general, is that what we consider basic might be basic for us. For kids, it's not basic. Keeping a room clean for us, pretty basic. Clean house, clean apartment, pretty basic, right? We have pride in the things that we are paying for, that we own or are renting or whatever it is. Like, we have pride in that. It means something to us. It's our little habitat. We want it to feel safe. And part of that is keeping it clean. We want to feel that pride in there. Kids, not so much. They're not paying for this stuff. They don't really own it. They don't control it. They don't care in the same way that we do. So basic for us is different for them. Kids, when it comes to brushing your teeth, yeah, pretty darn basic, but for them, they don't care. So even though these things we consider basic, for them, it's not important. Watching TV is important. Playing with their friends, to them, that's important. They will go out of their way to make those things happen, right? Playing video games, being on a tablet, playing with Legos. These things are important to them. They will make these things happen because they're important. Brushing their teeth, it's just not. It's just not. Cleaning the room, it's just not. Now, there are things like that probably would be more basic, like fundamental to just existing in a society that, I'm guessing Gertrude's society is like mine, where we use forks, we use utensils. So that may be considered, I think, pretty damn basic. Eating with your hands, probably less than ideal when it comes to spreading germs and whatnot. So that makes sense to me. Like, that probably should be a fundamental thing that's happening, is that we're using utensils to eat. We're not throwing food at each other. We're not eating off the floor. Stuff like that seems like, in general, pretty damn basic and a basic expectation for kids. If they're not doing these things, if they're wearing filthy clothes, they're drinking soda all day, like, to me, there is a concern there. I think kids will do those things. So a lot of this is just parental supervision, the parents being on the same page as far as what the expectations are for the kids. And at some point, it's like, I would start to be concerned about neglect. I mean, if a kid's drinking soda all day, wearing filthy clothes, if their hygiene's awful, but that's something different. That's on the parents. If the kids are not doing fundamental things like eating with a fork or a spoon, I'm like, well, why? Like, where did that come from? Did they not get these things growing up? And if that's the case, then it's really important that the two people involved, or one person, whoever it is the parent or parents are, that they communicate their expectation very clearly, but also enforce it during dinner time and model it as well, of course. But make it very clear that this is expected during mealtime. I mean, that seems pretty fundamental to me. But, choose your battles. Choose your battles. Not everything is as important. For me, the eating with a fork is pretty damn important. Keeping Legos off the floor, not so much. So what's considered basic for one home, for another home, it might not look the same. So choose your battles. For any parent, I would really recommend, focus on what's important. Schoolwork, completing schoolwork, pretty damn important in my opinion. In our home, that's pretty important. Getting passing grades, pretty damn important. Do they need to be A's? No, you just have to pass the class. Doing homework, taking a shower or a bath every day, pretty important. Eating with utensils, I mean, bare bones, fundamental stuff that, if it came down to it, these are things that my wife and I would be willing to go to battle for, like, quote unquote, go to battle for. Like, these are things that are extremely important, that we have basic fundamental expectations. Keeping your room clean, it'd be nice, but we're not going to, for us, it's not a battle. For us, it's not something that we're going to pick a fight over. I think we just basic room maintenance is fine. But like I said, there's Legos on the floor right now. It bothers me. Generally, I don't care about it though. So choose your battles. not everything is as important as the other thing, all right? If my kids wear polka dots up top and plaid down bottom, I think it's ugly, but I'm not going to pick up. It doesn't matter to us. It's not a huge issue that we're going to have to step in and, redirect. When it comes to these things that we're willing to pick battles about or not, talk about it with the other parent. The other parent and, both parents need to be on the same page, no matter what that looks like. And maybe in your household, it is really important that clothes match. To me, I recommend not picking that battle. But if both of you agree that the way we present ourselves in public is important, to me, it's a lot better than two people disagreeing about that and then fighting about it and the kid manipulating it in some way, right? So talk to each other. You have to be on the same page. If you do have clear communication with each other about what the expectations are, you've talked to the kids about what the expectations are, then if they do break the expectation, now we have a platform where we can implement a consequence if that's the structure of your home. We could take away privilege or do a timeout or whatever it is based on the choices the child's making. And if in my home, and what I recommend for you is that if you're doing consequences, it should be pretty damn important. Like hitting, not doing schoolwork, not going to school. For us, swearing is one of those things. It better be pretty significant if you're going to implement a consequence. We wouldn't do a consequence for playing too loudly or even talking back to us. That's not something that we would do a consequence for. They can have their opinion. They can say no to us. But if they say, no, I'm not doing my homework, that's different. You know what I mean? But with my daughter, we expect her to say no to pretty much everything. Like, hey, it's time to do your chores. No. We just expect it's going to happen. But we also know that chores will get done. And if not, that's when we would do a consequence. Gertrude mentioned a lack of patience. I think it's something that every single one of us can identify with. And when we have that lack of patience, just recognize that there's some flight-fight energy there. And there's a feeling of urgency or being rushed or pressured. That comes from at least a mild dysregulation. That comes from too much flight-fight energy in the system. So that's where we have to, before we act on that rushed feeling, that pressure, we got to do some self-regulation first. Get that stuff in check before interacting with your kid. That's what I recommend. In check enough. It doesn't have to be perfectly, you don't have to be smiling, you don't have to be perfectly self-regulated, but self-control is a good idea. But self-regulated enough to feel that energy, but also come from a state of safety.